The Anunnaki conspiracy. Is it a real possibility or just a figment of humanity's imagination? A mere urban legend? Is this rumor ultimately a good thing or a bad thing? Tonight, once again, we'll examine whether it's true or not from a Japanese perspective. Episode: The Anunnaki Conspiracy. What if the oldest stories in human history weren't myths at all? What if the very first written texts on Earth, carved into clay tablets thousands of years before the Bible, before Greek mythology, before the pyramids of Egypt, were actually trying to tell us something we've refused to take literally? They describe beings who came down from the sky, beings who ruled as kings, beings who, according to the tablets themselves, created human beings on purpose, as workers. Modern scholars call them myth. But the people who wrote about them didn't call them myth. They called them Anunnaki, and they called them real. Tonight, we're going back further than almost any other legend we've ever covered, back to the very beginning of written civilization, to ask a question that some researchers think is too dangerous to answer honestly. What if we weren't the first intelligent civilization on this planet? And what if we weren't even the ones in charge? This is ULW Radio, and this is the urban legend of the Anunnaki. Part 1. Why this legend refuses to die. There's a reason the Anunnaki have survived for 6,000 years while thousands of other ancient deities have faded into obscurity nobody remembers or cares about. It's because the story doesn't feel like mythology. It reads like a record. Most ancient religions describe their gods in abstract, poetic, almost dreamlike terms. Gods who live in clouds. Gods who are the ocean, or the sun, or the wind itself. But the Sumerian texts describing the Anunnaki are startlingly specific. They describe hierarchies, job titles, territorial disputes, complaints about food and living conditions, technology described in mechanical terms, flying chariots, structures that glow, weapons that split mountains. It reads less like scripture and more like a bureaucratic memo from a civilization documenting its rulers. That difference between myth that feels like poetry and myth that feels like a report is exactly why the Anunnaki legend refuses to stay buried in dusty museum archives. It's the same reason so many people today, when they first encounter the Sumerian texts, walk away with a chill they can't fully explain, because somewhere between fiction and documentation, this story sits in an uncomfortable middle ground. And once you notice that, you can't unnotice it. Part 2. Who were the Anunnaki? According to the record, let's lay out exactly what the ancient texts actually say, because the real Sumerian material is stranger and more restrained than most YouTube thumbnails would have you believe. The word Anunnaki appears in Sumerian and Akkadian cuneiform tablets dating back roughly to 2500 BCE, though scholars believe the oral traditions behind them are far older. The term roughly translates to those of royal blood or princely offspring. In the oldest texts, they're described as a pantheon of deities who govern the earth, the sky, and the underworld. According to the Sumerian creation narrative, the senior Anunnaki grew tired of manual labor, irrigating rivers, working the land, and demanded that a lesser being be created to do the work for them. In the oldest known creation story on Earth, predating Genesis by well over 1,000 years, human beings are not described as the pinnacle of creation. We're described as a workforce, built for a purpose, built to serve. Mainstream Assyriologists interpret this as an origin myth explaining agricultural labor and social hierarchy in early Mesopotamian society, a way for ancient priesthoods to justify why some people ruled and others toiled. That's the accepted academic reading, and it's a reasonable one. But it's not the only reading. And that's where this story splits. Part 3. The complete story sits roughly 3200 BCE. Cuneiform writing emerges in Sumer, in modern-day Iraq, the earliest known writing system on Earth. Among the very first surviving texts are king lists and temple hymns referencing the Anunnaki as rulers who descended to Earth. circa 1800 BCE. The Enuma Elish and the Atrahasis epic are composed, describing in detail the rebellion of lesser gods against the senior Anunnaki, and the subsequent creation of humanity to end that rebellion by taking over the labor. These texts also describe a catastrophic flood sent to destroy humanity, a flood narrative that predates the biblical flood story by over 1,000 years, with strikingly similar details. A chosen survivor, a boat, animals brought aboard, and birds sent out to find land. 19th century CE. European archaeologists begin excavating Mesopotamian sites in earnest. Thousands of clay tablets are unearthed, most still untranslated to this day, simply due to the sheer volume. Some estimates suggest less than half of all recovered cuneiform tablets have ever been fully translated and published. 1976. This is where the modern legend truly ignites. Author Zecharia Sitchin publishes The 12th Planet, proposing a radical reinterpretation of the Sumerian texts. Sitchin, who read Akkadian and Sumerian himself, argued that the Anunnaki weren't gods at all, but a technologically advanced extraterrestrial species from a planet he called Nibiru, which he claimed follows a massive, elongated orbit through our solar system. According to Sitchin, they came to Earth not for worship, but for gold, needed, he claimed, to repair their planet's deteriorating atmosphere. And humanity, in his reading, was genetically engineered by them as a mining workforce. Sitchin's translations were almost immediately challenged by professional Assyriologists, who argued he mistranslated key terms and cherry-picked passages to fit a predetermined conclusion. That criticism remains the dominant academic position today, and yet, his books have sold in the millions. Decades later, his theory hasn't just survived academic rejection. It's grown into one of the most widely discussed alternative history frameworks in the world. 2017. Amateur astronomers and online communities begin circulating renewed claims about a mysterious object approaching the inner solar system, reigniting Nibiru search trends. NASA has repeatedly and publicly stated no such planet exists in any tracked orbital data. The claims are dismissed by the scientific community as internet-driven pseudoscience. But here's the detail that keeps the story alive, whether you believe any of it or not. The Sumerians, a Bronze Age civilization with no telescopes, somehow left behind astronomical calculations for the outer planets that some researchers argue shouldn't have been observable to the naked eye at all. Wait, what? Let that sit for a second. We are talking about a civilization from roughly 5,000 years ago. No telescopes, no modern optics, and yet certain cuneiform astronomical tablets appear to reference outer planetary bodies with a level of detail that mainstream scholars still debate the true source of, whether it reflects genuinely sophisticated naked eye, tracking and mathematics, later scribal additions, or simple coincidence in translation. That single unresolved detail is the thread that an entire modern conspiracy movement hangs from. Part 4. The Theories 1. The scientific Tishon mainstream astronomers and historians of science argue that ancient Mesopotamian astronomy, while genuinely impressive, has been consistently overstated by ancient astronaut theorists. Sumerian and Babylonian priest astronomers tracked the 5 visible planets with extraordinary mathematical precision over centuries, developing early algebra and base, 60 time-keeping still used today in our clocks and geometry. Under this view, apparent references to invisible planets are almost certainly misinterpretations, mistranslations, or symbolic numerology rather than literal astronomical observation. Point 2. The historical Tisharwai historians of religion argue the Anunnaki narrative reflects the political structure of early Mesopotamian city-states, where ruling priest-kings claimed divine origin to justify absolute authority. Under this reading, gods who created humans to labor is a theological tool, not evidence of literal alien contact. designed to make a rigid social hierarchy feel cosmically ordained and unquestionable. Point 3. The psychological teacher. Why some researchers point to a deeper psychological pattern. Nearly every ancient culture, isolated from one another by oceans and mountain ranges, independently produced stories of sky beings who shaped humanity and later punished it with catastrophic floods. Rather than proof of a shared ancient contact event, psychologists studying comparative mythology suggest this may reflect universal human responses to real natural disasters, combined with our instinct to explain the unexplainable by looking upward. Point 4. The paranormal way outside of academia, a persistent subculture of researchers and self-described experiencers claim that entities matching Anunnaki descriptions continue to appear in modern encounters, reported not as ancient history, but as an ongoing presence, subtly influencing global events from behind the scenes. This theory rarely appears in serious research circles, but it remains a significant thread in online paranormal communities, often overlapping with reports of shadow figures, sleep paralysis entities, and high strangeness encounters near ancient Mesopotamian excavation sites. Point 5. The conspiracy theory. And then there's the theory that refuses to leave the algorithm alone. Ancient astronaut proponents argue that the Anunnaki were flesh and blood extraterrestrial visitors who didn't just create humanity, but deliberately capped our development, biologically and technologically, to keep us controllable. Under this theory, human history isn't a story of gradual, organic progress. It's a managed timeline. Global governments and religious institutions, in this reading, either don't know the full truth or have actively suppressed it for millennia to preserve social and religious order. Believers point to the sudden, unexplained leap in Sumerian civilization, writing, mathematics, astronomy, and law all appearing within a startlingly compressed period, with few clear precursor stages, as evidence that this knowledge was handed down, not developed. Mainstream historians attribute this instead to the natural pressures of early urbanization, dense populations forcing rapid innovation in record-keeping and organization. But the pace of that leap remains, to this day, a subject of genuine scholarly debate. Part 5. Deep analysis. The contradictions that won't go away. Contradiction 1. The precision problem. Sumerian mathematics used a base 60 system so accurate that we still divide our hours into 60 minutes and our circles into 360 degrees because of it. How a civilization emerging from small agricultural villages developed this level of abstract precision within a few centuries remains only partially explained by the standard, gradual innovation model. Contradiction 2. The flood parallel. The Mesopotamian flood narrative and the biblical flood narrative share an almost suspicious number of specific structural details, despite being separated by well over 1,000 years and originating in different cultures. Historians argue this reflects a shared regional memory of catastrophic Tigris-Euphrates flooding. Ancient astronaut theorists argue the similarity is too exact to be coincidence, and too consistent to be simple cultural borrowing alone. Contradiction 3. The Sitchin problem. Zecharia Sitchin's translations have been widely rejected by professional Assyriologists, a criticism with real linguistic merit that shouldn't be dismissed. And yet, no scholar has ever produced a fully satisfying alternative explanation for why the original untranslated Sumerian material describes its gods in such mechanically specific, almost technical terms in the first place. Rejecting Sitchin's conclusion doesn't fully resolve the strangeness of the source material he was working from. Contradiction 4. The translation gap. With less than half of all recovered cuneiform tablets fully translated, we are, quite literally, building our entire understanding of the world's oldest civilization from an incomplete record. Every year, new fragments are translated, and some have already forced historians to quietly revise timelines once considered settled. That's not conspiracy. That's just an uncomfortable, documented fact. We do not yet have the full story. Not even close. Part 6. Why this still matters to you might wonder why a 5,000-year-old myth about ancient kings from the sky matters to anyone living in 2026. Here's why. Every year, new archaeological digs across Iraq, Turkey, and Syria, including at sites like Göbekli Tepe, a monumental complex now dated to roughly 9,600 BCE, thousands of years before Sumer itself, continue to push back the known timeline of organized human civilization. Every time that timeline shifts, the neat, linear story of gradual human progress gets a little less neat. The Anunnaki legend endures because it captures something we still haven't resolved: the gap between how advanced early civilization appears in the record and how slow and painful we assume human progress should have been. That gap keeps getting rediscovered, generation after generation, by researchers working with better tools than the ones before them. And it keeps refusing to fully close. And there's a deeper reason too, one far less about ancient history and far more about us right now. This story asks a question every generation eventually asks itself in some form. Are we truly in control of our own story? Or are we, in some way, still living inside a structure someone else built a very long time ago? Closing. The final king. So here's where we're left at a creation myth older than nearly anything else ever written down, describing humanity not as the center of the universe, but as a workforce. A sudden, still debated leap in early human civilization. A body of ancient texts so vast that more than half of it remains untranslated even today. And a legend that professional scholars have spent decades trying to put to rest, and somehow never quite managed to. Maybe the Anunnaki really were nothing more than the imagination of a Bronze Age priesthood, encoded into clay to justify power that needed a cosmic excuse. That's certainly the most evidence-supported explanation, and it deserves to be taken seriously. Or maybe, just maybe, the oldest story ever written down was never meant to be read as fiction in the first place. I'll leave you with this. If this really is just mythology, why does it keep describing itself as a record? Was this simply the invention of ancient storytellers? Or have we only been shown part of the truth? Let me know what you believe in the comments. And if this pulled you in deeper than you expected, you already know what to do next. This has been ULW Radio. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and never stop asking who really wrote our story first.